You're listening to the Cars of Carlisle Network, podcast episode number 104. BJ Becker, Becker's Garage, one-stop engine shop.
Cars of Carlisle is your favorite internationally downloaded podcast about all things automotive. Darren and his CFC team are ever searching for interesting automotive happenings, real stories about real car people, and fun features to inform and entertain you. Each week, the Cars of Carlisle crew brings you show topics ranging from car shows to team adventures to auto racing weekends to behind-the-scenes human interest stories from car nuts that live across town, across the country, or even across the globe. Come join the road trip.
Today, join Darren as he speaks with BJ Becker, owner of a top-notch ASE-certified garage in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. What separates Becker's Garage from the rest is BJ's lifelong passion for transforming worthless, broken equipment into exceptional machinery. At the early age of 12, BJ was buying and wrenching on trucks and cars, honing his mechanical talents. By the age of 14, he had skillfully rebuilt his first Chevy small block. Now, after decades in the automotive mechanical industry, BJ has grown his business through loyal customers, expertise, and well-earned trust. Journey with your CFC friends as we talk shop with a guy who, among his many automotive skills, can overhaul an LS engine with the very best of them. It's time to head back west to Shippensburg. So, let's get revved up!
Hello and welcome back, Cubers, to your favorite informative automotive podcast. I am your trusted host, Darren, and this is episode 104. As you heard, we're going to be talking to BJ Becker, and he is the guy who took care of my 427 last spring. A big thank you to you, BJ, for all that you've done with that and continue to take care of that car whenever I need to do work that's beyond my aptitude, if you would. But you're going to hear in this week's episode about Becker's Garage and how BJ Becker, he's been a mechanic for 18 years. He ran a shop across town for 3 years, then started his own business. And he's one of those bosses that truly gets his hands dirty every single day. He has grease on his elbows, on his hands, and he is underneath a car or working on an engine bay constantly. And he definitely keeps his trade and his skills going each and every day, and I have a lot of respect for the knowledge he's gained as a self-made business owner. And a special shout out to our friends at Porsche Mechanicsburg. They are working on building that state-of-the-art facility. Be sure to check that out. Obviously, with the situation with COVID-19, it slowed some things down, but they are hoping still to get into that facility here mid-year, and we are excited to be part of their launch and to be associated with them. So as we all get back to our new normal and able to shop for cars, be sure to check out Porsche Mechanicsburg. As I know, everyone is definitely doing their best through these challenging times, and we're thinking of you and know that you're giving your all and giving your best to your family. Speaking of family, our family and friends at the AACA Museum, well, they could use your support however you can, whether it be through donations, purchasing or renewing museum memberships. Maybe it might be purchasing any of their cool merchandise that they have on their online store. Could be participation in their Adopt a Car program, whereby you can have your name, your company name, on a placard next to a vehicle on their showroom floor, I should say on their museum floor. And why not, speaking of Corvettes, purchasing a chance for the Corvette giveaway. 2020 might look good in your garage if that's of interest to you. You might even want to consider booking a future event. So regardless of what it is, check out the aacamuseum.org. Okay, today's trivia question. In what year did Saab stop producing vehicles? And to our listeners in Sweden, be sure to catch the closing 15 seconds of the show for something that might make you snicker or even flat out laugh. But please be nice. So, without further ado, let's go talk to BJ Becker. Hello, Cubers. This is Darren, and I am with you today calling my good friend and fan of the Cars of Carlisle podcast, BJ Becker. BJ, thanks for being on today, bud.
Thank you, Darren.
It's so good to have you. In fact, I've been to the shop a couple times in the last 60 days or so, but with everything going on in the world, we're trying to do our part, and we're doing this by Skype. But we're also talking about me getting the Z06 back to you for some of that specialty work that you've done for me, and we'll get into that as we talk today. But I just wanted to all my fans and friends out there to let you know that if you live anywhere near the Carlisle area, particularly near Shippensburg, or you're down near Hagerstown, Chambersburg, Becker's Garage off of Airport Road in Shippensburg is where I take my Corvette, and I looked around for a long time to find somebody that I knew knows an LS engine, inside, outside, upside down, and backwards. Mr. Becker is my bud. He's the one that does it. So as far as like one-stop engine shop, foreign and domestic, I mean, he works on everything. And I know we can get into that too as we talk here, BJ. But I know you've got fleet contracts and things. You work with businesses for their diesel and everything else too, correct?
Yes, we have about 12 different fleets all around the Shippensburg area that, and most of them have been with me probably 10 plus years.
Okay.
So yeah, very, very blessed to have them with us because they need to keep their vehicles going. That's how they make their living. We keep them on the road.
That's important. And one thing I know that clicked right away for us is when I first brought the Corvette to you, you had noticed the Jesus sticker in my windshield, and I've always appreciated the fact that you are a strong entrepreneur, businessman, but you also know where your blessings come from, and as a God-fearing man, and that means something to me.
Absolutely. Definitely a Christian brother, and I noticed that right away, and we clicked, and that truly meant something to me. I just felt the connection the first time I met you, Darren, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I knew that I could count on you, and I knew it was in good hands, and there was just that kind of immediate trust, like, hey, I'm putting a lot of thought and money your way, and I know you got this. So, this interview is not a commercial, but sincerely, like everyone who's been on the show and guests of the Cars of Carlisle podcast, to me it's just a giant family, and everybody's part of that community and that family of friends and people that really love cars, which is a great segue. And I know that my listeners are used to this, and I always like to know, how did someone know that they love vehicles, or they like cars and internal combustion engines and what have you? How far back would you need to go, BJ, to when you get to that point of you just knew you were a car guy, you just liked things that went?
Well, to be honest, it kind of started. I was a kid and had buddies, that did some, was into drag racing and other stuff, and a couple neighborhood buddies of mine were really into it. Their dad had a couple Pro Street vehicles, and this and that, and that's kind of really where it started. And I was born and raised on a small farm and worked on some other local farms and started working on some of the farm equipment, anything from tractors to balers, whatever broke, I was right there and always wanted to be in on fixing it or helping. And that's really where it started. And I think I was probably 12 when I bought my first truck. It was an old farm truck in the 70s, early 70s. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up buying another one and did my first small block Chevy. I was probably 14 years old, and with a little bit of help, and converted a two-wheel drive truck and made it a four-wheel drive. And it was a big project, especially at that age, and working out of a kind of a small barn. It was a challenge, but I really enjoyed it, and it was great. I loved it.
That's how you really cut your teeth on things. Is just maybe getting into something that's a little over your head. But like anything that stretches us, and once you stretch your skill set beyond where you even imagined, it's really hard to ever go back. And then that probably just launched you into pursuing that. So from that point of the work going from the two-wheel drive to the four-wheel drive, and you're in the barn and everything, tell us what happened in the years after that. How did things start to happen where you knew that you were going to open your own business and become an entrepreneur and that type of thing?
Well, I just, I just really had a love for it, and I like, really love taking something that is broken, not drivable, whether the transmission is not working or the engine, has been blown up, and it's really not worth a lot at that point. And then, after the repair, you're driving it down the road, and I'm sure everybody can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Not only for myself, but, helping somebody, helping a neighbor, or at that time, a buddy or something that we were working on their vehicle, car, truck, whatever it was. And, it was kind of interesting as I get into my teenage years. I was a, drag racer and then get into trucks. And at the time, I just, didn't have the money to pay somebody to fix it. So, basically, I just had to teach myself and learn and do it. And I learned a lot. And then, as progressed into my early 20s, I had a lot of good teachers, a couple local guys, super knowledgeable guys, and I was very blessed to be around three in particular, and they taught me a lot. And I worked at a local shop here in town as an apprentice with the one guy, and he ended up leaving and starting his own business. And it wasn't it may have been a month. He called me and he said, "Man, I need you," and I said, "Well, that's fine." And we went and worked for him for a while, and basically ended up running his shop for about 5 or 6 years. And then one day I just decided, I thought, you know what, I just want to do this for myself,
Right.
That's what I did, and that's been probably a little over 15 years ago.
Good for you, and congratulations too. We all know that it takes something special to keep a business viable and growing past the 5-year anniversary, and you've more than tripled that. So, well done, and proud of your efforts.
Yep, it hasn't all been golden. A couple tough bridges to cross, but
Sure.
You wake up in the morning and you got to stand on your feet and you got to go after it.
That's
because
right.
It won't come to you.
That's right. Well, what are some of the things that you have learned just in the automotive business? Particularly, I know that you work both domestic and foreign and diesel, and really from an engine shop, as well as people in the Shippensburg area come to you for oil changes and regular work and things. But what is it that really stands out that you may not have appreciated about the automotive industry until you became your own business owner 15 years ago?
Employees is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to make ends meet. Understanding that just because a bill might say a certain number at the bottom, it doesn't mean that's all yours. It's just what it takes to run your shop. Bills, insurance, and
Mm-hmm.
and employees, and just coming and going, and just trust in your employees. In your clientele. I've really tried to build a super good clientele, and I have. I'm very successful. I love all my customers to death. And, I truly believe, Darren, sometimes your business is only as good as your employees and your clientele.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, and I'm very blessed. I'm at this end of town, and when I was looking at this location, I actually sat in the parking lot before I moved into this building and watched the traffic, studied the traffic, wanted to see how many cars were going by here. I'm not on the main strip in Shippensburg. I'm a little off the main strip. And, then I decided to move into this building from my first location, which was on Fayette Street. And things had really, progressed from there.
Well, again, smart decisions and doing essentially what, market analysis and assessing things. And I can tell you, simply said, that how you treated me from the very first phone call, let alone first meeting and then bringing the Corvette to you and what have you, I know that you live your word and you walk your talk, in the sense that even days that I've been at the shop when phone's ringing off the hook and people are coming and going and there's a car on the lift, another one ready to come in, just keeping a steady hand, a cool head, and always treating everyone like their car is the most important one. And that's in addition to, as you said, all the diesel contracts and the fleets and everything else you're managing and maintaining. That alone is highly stressful. So kudos to you for it. I've seen it in action that you really do live your word.
Yes, it can. It can be a lot, and I'm sure. I'm not. We're all doing it, And, there's been times where I've had to run this place, by myself for months, not a week, for months. And it's super, it's been challenging at times. And I'll be honest with you, Darren, I just, I prayed, and good things have happened. Good things have happened here. And I just think that, the Lord has got me through a lot of those tough times. Mm-hmm. And, it's just when I've been down, somebody comes in, maybe a big job and, say, hey, I want to put a new engine in this vehicle and, mm-hmm. and pick me right back up and kept me going. And that's what it's all about. I mean, I can look back over the years, and I've had some low points, but I've had some high points too, and it's kind of leveled itself out, and it keeps you going.
That's right. That's the key part right there. It truly is. In fact, I wanted to tell the listeners, earlier today, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the work you did on the Z06 and with that 427 cubic inch and things. And I found in some of my receipts that I kept all the paperwork that I've had done on the car. And in the one, it was going back to an invoice from July, and BJ wrote right on it, as far as the mechanic's recommendations, he wrote 2 words: have fun. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I figured you'd like that, Darren.
Yeah, it wasn't lost on me. I noticed it right away. I sure did. But yeah, well, I want to talk about some of your favorite projects. I know you put some monster cars together that have run the track, the quarter mile, and everything. Let's talk about those, and then we can come back around and talk a little bit about the work you did for me last summer. So, what are some of those favorite projects of yours? I know you've got a lot of friends that are still out there burning the quarter mile.
Did one of the more recent was actually before yours, probably 6 months before your Corvette came in. Did a 74 Nova Super Sport for a good friend of mine in Delaware, and he had the car, basically the body restored, painted, and it was a rolling chassis when it came, original rear, and I had a friend of mine do a 9-inch Ford rear for the car, and then we ordered a 400 turbo trans, and we did a 406 small block and made it with a Tech fuel injection system, and the car turned out super, super nice. The car's built for 1,000 horsepower. The engine's realistically probably 600, but it's a handful. It's not a real big car, and we actually took it to the Ocean City Cruise in and had a ton of fun. Tried to not get a fine doing it, but we had fun.
I'm sure not a subtle car by the exhaust or anything else.
No, yeah, it's a handful to drive, that's for sure. Not quite the Corvette because it's automatic, but it's a handful.
Well, no, and I'll tell you, those Novas, they're a lot of fun, especially once they've been modded out. I mean, they're a really popular option platform for that. Very cool. And any other projects that you wanted to showcase or share with the listening group?
Not super recent. We've done a lot of trucks. Also, it's not just cars. We've done some lift kits and some suspension upgrades. We do a lot of that, a lot of leveling kits, things like that. Your Corvette was probably the next after that, the big projects,
Yeah, because probably a good transition to that is maybe the Cubers, the listeners do or don't know. Last April, May timeframe, I bought the Vet out of New Jersey and had done a lot of research and knew that year of the 427, which to my knowledge is still the largest displacement small block V8 the GM has ever put out. 427 cubic inch, but still considered a small block, and at 505 factory horsepower, it's decent. But I know that some of the concerns were that it was throwing rods and some other things, and I had called around and checked around, and very expensive work to be done. A lot of people were at 6 to 12 month backlog, and I bought the car to enjoy it, not to store it, and ended up calling the Chevy dealership in Shippensburg, and they had pointed me to Becker's Garage, and that led to my first phone call and talk to BJ. And like I said a little bit earlier in this interview, from the very, very first phone contact, what have you. It was, again, just really understanding, talk me through it. And I'm the first to tell you that while I have a father and uncles and everything else in my family that are engineers and are mechanically gifted, I'm better at driving them than wrenching them. And I know my limitations. I like to learn, and I try to do what I can. But BJ was very, very patient with me as the student, essentially, as we walked through what we needed. And I know just breaking down to, okay, well, we're replacing the heads. We should do the head bolt set, and started to really understand, okay, with the rocker arms, and we went, part by part by part of how I planned to drive the car, what I was going to do with it, how much we should build up the engine, how reinforced things should be. Right down to, you just put a new starter in this spring, and the fact that, you recommended going with a heavier duty GM OEM. And so you're just taking your recommendations on things and knowing that you're giving me suggestions as if the car were yours, which that very much I appreciate.
Yeah, well, Darren, I was impressed. A lot of customers, some people come in and, they're not, they're bringing it here to get it fixed because they're not mechanics, and some people do research and say, hey, this is what I want, this is what I'd like to have. And I was definitely impressed with your research. You did definitely spend some time, read up, and you knew what you wanted. You just didn't have the time, place, not quite the knowledge, to do it yourself. Mm-hmm. And we basically put our heads together, and we both researched some things together, and that's what we decided to do. The set of trick flow heads, and actually sent the rocker assemblies out and had them put roller bearings and everything in a company do that for us, and then they shipped them back. So the trick flow heads, the push rods, they did make some head gasket trouble, and some people have some trouble with the valve train issues and stuff, especially at higher RPMs. And we basically, you said to me, you wanted to do this, the tour you went on, and you didn't want any issues. What was it, 44,000 miles, 48,000?
As far as what's on the clock?
Yeah, what was on the clock when you bought it?
I think it was 44, 45 when I had the work done, and then I had that 1,600-mile rally trip. Days after we basically finished it up, I put the wrap on as far as all the sponsor decals, and it wasn't out of your shot probably 72 hours, and I was heading north on that trip. So yeah.
Well, and that goes back to earlier in our conversation, Darren. Honestly, but it's feeling good about your work and trusting your work, and I knew that, and that wasn't it's not a cruising tour. Rally race. I knew, the car was going to see high RPM. So, and I'm very meticulous at really anything I do, but especially with that car, everything, torqued right, in place, so it would be defined, for the rally race and in the future. That's what was super, super important to me.
Absolutely. And one thing too, now granted, BJ and I are really good friends out of all this, but a year ago it was just client and mechanic, but I can tell you that even in the short friendship back last July when I headed out, he would send me a text every day or two while I was up on the road. I had Watkins Glen one day, track day, had running the quarter mile up in New Hampshire Dragway, and BJ was sending me text messages, how's she running? Any knocks, everything sounding good. Are you checking the oil? I sent along, some oil with you. Have you topped it off? You've been checking the levels, So it was almost like a doctor to his patient kind of thing. And I got to tell you, that's the level, that's the caliber we're talking about. Because to hit to your point, BJ, I wasn't careless, and in fact I did rolling starts in the quarter mile and some other things to know that the engine had basically been rebuilt from the top up. But I was highly impressed that you were staying in touch throughout that tire trip all the way up to Maine to make sure 427 was doing what she was supposed to, singing and running tight. So
it's a personal relationship. Whether somebody comes in here with an 03 Chevy Cavalier and wants a head gasket or even brakes. I'm a firm believer in people like dealing with who is working on their vehicle. And I've just had some other situations, where someone comes in and says, well, I was, there, and, I just didn't know who was working on my vehicle. I mean, when you come here, when you enter my shop, you usually talk to me, and that's who's doing the work on your vehicle. And it's like it's a personal relationship. And, I care about everyone that comes through that door, no matter what the caliber of job it is or the level of job, it's about, making sure that person's happy. The job is quality repair, and it's about the customer, and I want them to come back. So.
Well, it shows. And by no means am I, this is a commercial or anything, but I do believe in this podcast. Something that's very important to me is helping fellow business owners, fellow car enthusiasts, those that are in the hobby, the industry, and to me it is a giant family. And I give without any expectation. And for me to say these kind words about my mechanic and my friend, it's just what's in my heart, and I believe in it. And I do really feel that, and everything you do, BJ, I mean, every customer that comes in and goes out, they know that you've put your heart into it, you've given your full attention to it. And I mean, after all the years you've been in this industry, I mean, some downright skill. And it doesn't matter, like you said, if the job's on a 2-year-old car that's just a family cruiser, or if it's something that's ripping an 11-second quarter mile. I mean, you really do care, and that shows.
Yeah, and it's a good feeling. What you said earlier in our conversation, the local Chevy dealer, it sent you here. I mean, that's a pretty big milestone for me. Going from 18 years ago, in a one-bay shop, I had one lift. Started out with a small Craftsman toolbox that somebody gave me. A good friend of mine gave me a parts washer, and I think I had one set of jack stands. And now I'm probably somewhere, $150,000 in tools, and I have 2 lifts, a truck lift. That's a big milestone, and the Chevy dealer, could have sent you anywhere. Yeah. And they sent you here, so that means a lot to me. It really does.
It should. It really should. And I talked to the service manager, and I said what I wanted to get done, and they just said, we could do that, but we know of a guy that's particularly known for being extremely good with Chevy LS engines. You ought to give him a call. And I'm glad I did. Quite honestly, it was a game changer for me.
And that definitely has rolled over. Actually, in particular, just 2 weeks ago, we actually had he's a local state trooper, and he had a Suburban, and had a noise in the in the engine. It was a Flex Fuel 5.3, and I knew as soon as I heard it had a stuck lifter. The guy, we priced him out a new Jasper engine. He didn't want to go that way. Basically, we're going to redo the top half of the engine. He didn't really want to go that way, and I told him, I said, we do have one other thing we can try, and some of those flex fuel engines, the lifters, well, actually the active fuel management, will stick, and you can get them unstuck. There's a process to it, but you can get them unstuck, and then they actually make an AFM that plugs into the OBD2 that does away with that, and he was super lucky, and instead of spending $6,000, he spent, a small fraction of that, and it fixed it. Yep, runs great.
And that's got to be a good feeling for him, but especially for you too. That you heard it, you diagnosed it accurately. Now, granted, it could have gone the other way. Maybe mechanically, it wasn't going to be one of the eligible candidates for the repair, but it ended up working out. And in support of one of our first responders, it helped his budget, and everybody won. So that's amazing.
Absolutely. Yep. He was super, super happy, especially when he got the bill, and that's where he was at. I mean, the Suburban had 180,000 miles on it. That's a lot of money to put a new engine in, and I understood that.
Sure.
And gave him a couple options, and we went with the option we did, and it worked out in good to his favor, and he's down the road and another happy customer.
That's great. Well, I wanted to, I've been asking for a while. I wanted you to come on the show, and I know that, A, you're extremely busy, and B, it's not the easiest thing to stop what you're doing and give up a half hour or so to do this kind of thing. And I know that it's about 5:45, 5:50 on a Tuesday here on the East Coast, and the shop is relatively closed up for the business day, and I really appreciate that. Anything else that you'd like to share, bearing in mind, like we talked, that the listeners are certainly all over Carlisle, Cumberland County, the greater Cumberland Valley, up and down the Mid-Atlantic. We've got friends and fans on the West Coast and everywhere in between, and then in countries like Spain, Portugal, France, Germany, so all over. But anything that you'd want to share with anyone a mile away or 10,000 miles away?
Darren, for one, I just want to say I think you're an awesome person, and I've liked you from the day one we met. We definitely share, we're brothers in Christ. And with that being said, first of all, because I know what God has done for me and throughout my life and in my business, I would just like to say, I want to pray for everybody out there in these crippling times. It's just terrible. People's lives have been changed, turned upside down. Some people not working financially, health, and just want to pray for everybody listening and beyond, and just hope that, we're all going to come out of this okay. And that, I just feel, we've been, we've actually been busy over the last few weeks, and I'm just super blessed with that. And you had asked me to come on, and speak with you on the podcast. And at first, I'll be honest, I was a little nervous. And I just, I thought it'd be good, just to reach out to everybody and let them know what's going on. And, just want to pray over everybody and hope that everybody's safe. And, we'll get through this all together.
Now, I think you said it best. And, This show is about the people. I know you've been listening for a little while, and anyone that's been part of any of these 102, 103, 104 episodes know that in the tagline as far as car community, car culture, it's the community, it's the people that are listening, it's the people that are out there, friends we haven't met yet. That's what I really care about, and I know that as a businessman, that's obviously what you care about. It shows in your clientele, and I think you had the very best summing up right there, BJ. Is just the fact of thoughts and prayers to everybody, and no one is untouched by this. And if nothing else, it makes us realize that everybody on this planet is part of creation, and we got to stick together however we can, the best we can.
Absolutely. And just to reach out to anybody, I'm at 89 Airport Road in Shippensburg. You can find me. I'll be here. Anybody, needs anything done, I'll be glad to help, give you an estimate, anything we can do for you.
Outstanding. Well, I smile every time I go out to the garage and I pull the cover back to fire up the Z06 to let her warm up and run, or right now it's not a lot. There's really no cruising. It's just a matter of going out and turning the engine over every weekend. But I smile every time because just to let you guys know, this is kind of my final comment is BJ's the kind of guy that does go that 110% and goes the extra mile. And what I mean by that is after all the work done on the engine and what have you, he had made a point to buy a car cover and keep it over the Corvette the entire time it was being worked on, so no dust and any rub anybody near it or anything. And as I picked it up, he said, "Why don't you just keep that car cover?" So it's things like that there's no single time that I don't pull that cover back that I think about my friend and appreciate all the good things you did.
It was definitely wrapped up when it was in here in the shop. I wanted to make sure that nothing happened to it. Wow. It's a beautiful car. I know you love it, and I love it. It's an awesome car to drive. And it was actually covered up here in the shop, and there was probably 2 or 3 people, that had come through, and they were trying to figure out they couldn't even figure out. We had so many blankets over that car. They couldn't even figure out, what kind of car was under it. And I said, that's where we're keeping it safe.
You did just that. And
yep.
And every time
it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the job.
Yeah. Every time it's there for whatever work, anything being done, I know that it's sort of like at its second home, and it's in as good a shape and condition and care as I could give it. So that's a great feeling.
Absolutely.
Well, BJ, God bless you and your family, your clients, and everyone in your world. We'll certainly be in touch. In fact, I know that you and I are pricing out that Posi Lube and some other things to get the Z06 back to you. But I really do appreciate you. I know you're going to be late getting home for dinner and everything, but thank you for giving time to the show and to the friends of Cars of Carlisle. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate on the show, and it's like you said, earlier we were talking before earlier today, and you mentioned my help in the office, and I'll tell you, my office manager, he is just a blessing, man. He does a wonderful job, and I don't know, some days where I would be, without him. And the guy came. He was supposed to be here part-time, and the guy works 43 hours a week. And, he is just a wonderful, wonderful person, and he helps me out. And right now it actually just is me and him, and it's like clockwork. If I'm thinking it, he sometimes he's doing it, and that is priceless. You can't put a price on that. Mm-hmm. If I'm thinking about what needs done next or whatever, and he's reaching for keys, it's just... Mm-hmm. Over the last few weeks, he could have said, hey, I don't feel comfortable working. Throughout all this, we've been, wiping doors down and counters down and cars down and keys down, and he has been with me 100% from the beginning. And he is definitely a blessing.
Well, a big shout out to Roland. He makes me feel whenever I call in or stop in. He's an exceptional extension of your professionalism, and couldn't agree more. He's an outstanding guy.
Yep, thanks, Darren. I appreciate it. Yep, he's definitely a keeper for sure.
Yep, it is. Well, I'll let you get home to dinner. Thank you so much. And again, if you are anywhere in the Cumberland Valley area and you need a mechanic that you can trust, check out Becker's Garage, 89 Airport Road, Shippensburg.
Darren, thank you, and you have a good evening, and God bless you all.
All right, God bless, brother. Hey, take care.
Take care.
All right. Welcome back to Studio A. Thank you, BJ Becker. Appreciate you giving your time and energy at the end of a long workday and that Skype interview. Can't wait till we can get back out moving around and to hang out with you at the shop. Okay, so I had talked to you about us working on a form of an online virtual car show. We've been, Scott and I and some other friends and strategic alliance partners have been working on something, so that will have some more details for you. I keep teasing it up, but trust me, we're putting some effort into that. The Cars of Carlisle team is hard at work with two other businesses that you know about through this show, and we're excited to share more here in the next week or two. But that event itself will be happening over the Memorial Day weekend, and I can guarantee you it's going to be a blast. So stay tuned. Upcoming guests I want to mention too. We have a lot of great things on the board here in the studio of guests that are coming up. We're going to have a Hollywood actress that is in support of electric vehicles and alternative fuel vehicles. So that'll be coming up very shortly. A TV car show personality from Down Under in Australia. Just had that interview an evening this week by Skype, so we'll have that very, very shortly. A BMW fan from Dallas, Texas that has built a garage that I could probably put 3 of my garages inside his garage. And even some folks you will probably know from the Dukes of Hazzard. So there's a lot of things happening. Even though we don't have the car show season really up to full RPMs just yet, and I know we're all itching for that no matter where we are in the world, we are doing our best to pull together some content. And I want to say a big thank you to everybody on my team for a lot of hard work, a lot of late hours, and they're all making it happen. Okay, that trivia question, it needs an answer. I had posed earlier, what year did Saab stop producing vehicles? The answer is 2011. So Saab ceased production in April of that year, and after 6 decades of building cars, they did close down production in 2011. So Saab AB was founded in 1945. Production started in full around 1947 in Trollhättan, Sweden, and then carried through right up to the spring of 2011. Well, each week, this just for a run here, especially as we're all facing the pandemic and coming together as a global community, it's been important that we try to show our solidarity. And with that, we've been looking at our statistics and following where we've had most of our downloads and our biggest fan base, and trying to give credit to those countries outside the U.S. doing just that. So this week, obviously with the Saab trivia question, we want to thank our friends and fans from Sweden. And with that, I'll do my very best to close the show with a bit of really rough Swedish, so hang in there. So until next week, when you join us again on a new road trip, I will say, Shebra, Varbra, Tahando e Helva, or drive well, be well, take care.